towards that.
Yeah,
And then it goes up.
oh, okay, so when she wants it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So be nice to Holly.
Yeah.
Thanks you, Holly.
Sensitive.
Let me know if you need anything.
Okay. All right, great. So I'm Holly. I'm going to just basically, the hardest part about getting someone to come in to a buyer's consultation is usually just getting them to actually come in. You have to show them the value. So if you don't believe that there's value in a buyer's consultation, then you're probably never going to be able to portray that to the buyer. So you have to really believe that you're saving them a lot of time, you're saving them money. In turn, you're also saving yourself a lot of time and yourself a lot of money. So you want to make sure that you're on purpose, that you hit certain points. You have to be able to determine what type of buyer you're working with. Are they super mushy? Are they first-time home buyers? They want to get a good feeling, or are they bottom line? They want to save time. They just want a good investment. So you have to kind of play into your buyer a little bit. So you don't. I usually try to keep them about an hour. That's the expectation I set up ahead of time, so they know what we're getting into. Usually, I throw my fish out there, my bait, and I usually kind of say it's just an hour, and then afterwards we'll go take a look at a couple properties. That's always my setup. We don't always take a look at a couple properties, just depending on the expectations at the end. I usually try to plan for an hour. Sometimes it takes close to 2 hours, just depending on the person. So I kind of let them run the show once they get into the office. I usually will time myself with a drink. So I always try to bring a drink in there because I talk a lot in a buyer's consultation, so I want to take a breath because I tend to talk really quick and fast. So I'll try to pace myself by taking a drink, relaxing a little bit, and then once my drink is gone, I usually say I want to try to start wrapping it up at that point so I don't lose them completely, because sometimes they get a little glazed over. So, did everybody get a buyer sheet? Okay. Nope.
I don't know.
Okay. Do we have any more? Or?
Make some copies. Do I need them for me?
Here, I have two.
But we need more than two.
We can always get extra when we're done if you want. Okay, everybody, you're allowed to make your own if you are creative, but Keller Williams is really big on not reinventing the wheel, so you're more than welcome to make copies and use these for your own. You might want to manipulate it so it's not KG, which is me and my husband's team, but you can if you want, so that's fine.
Where can you find the form?
It's for free if you just want to make copies of it.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know if it was in.
Yeah, we created this just based on working with buyers, so it kind of, you can print them off of, I think you have one in your toolkit that you can also print off that might be a little bit more effective for you. But we have 3 buyers agents on our team, and we created this based on our market and the clients that we typically service. We're very specific with the questions we ask too, and the goal is to sit down with these buyers and paint the picture. What are they looking for? And to know what type of house, and to be able to visualize that quicker than they know, because most of the time they come in and they don't know what they're looking for. So you want to determine what type of house it is that they're looking for.
Anybody need one?
Okay, so a lot of these are pretty basic questions. We always, if you see there's 2 colors on the sheet, the white part of the sheet is questions we try to get when the lead comes in. So when we get the phone call, we want to get their name, their phone number, their email. We want to know what property they inquired on. We want to know how it came in. I don't know how long, if any of you have been in the business before? Anybody been in business before? Okay. One of the most important things at the end of the year is to track your business and find out where you got these leads from so you can allocate that marketing money. So we always want to make sure, did it come in on Zillow.com? Did it come in from a past client? Was it a realtor referral? So we always jot that down, and that's a real important piece to me. I want to know where the lead came from so we can invest our marketing dollars towards what we're getting a good turnout with. We always try to find out what their time frame is on the phone. Does anybody know why we would ask that on the phone?
There's no point in getting them in the office if they're waiting 6 months.
Okay. Anybody else?
It's basically the same. They look it right away, and this is a rush client, so you got to. I need the agent to go work with him immediately. If you're looking 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, okay, about month 4, I could probably start sending you out some emails on whether or not
So does anybody have any rules that they would, if someone calls in and says, I'm looking to buy in a year, what would you tell that client? Would you do a buyer's consultation if they're looking in a year?
No, not really.
No?
Well,
Okay.
for me, not really. I would just.
Okay. Would anybody do one?
I would.
You would? Okay. Well,
And the reason being, okay, just, you know, they say a year.
mhm.
Because I'm kind of in a similar little situation right now with this. I still want to keep an eye out for, you know, when that's I know what they want.
Okay.
I still want to keep an eye out because there may be some super big deal that's out there and that you can end up presenting to them later.
Okay.
And that period, and they may go ahead, it may only be 6 months.
Okay.
So a lot of times, what I've come to find out, you know, I've had a lot of clients, you know, so, you know, just because they say a year doesn't mean it's going to be a year.
Very true. Yeah. There's a good rule of thumb that whatever their time frame is, you want to cut it in half.
Yeah.
So if they say they want to be in something in by Christmas, you want to cut that in half, that they want to be in something in probably October. The thing that buyers don't take into consideration is the time it actually takes to get a house, the time, how many offers they have to write before they get something accepted, and then it takes 30 to 45 days to close a loan. So they're not thinking that, they're just thinking of what they want their move-in date to be. So that's your job, is to kind of translate for them a little bit. I would definitely do a buyer's consultation with somebody that is looking a year out, because I don't really agree with setting up searches just to set up searches. I want face-to-face contact. If the buyer is motivated enough to come in and set an appointment, they're pre-qualified, they have the means to buy, I'll definitely sit with them in a year, because like he said, it could be probably 6 months before they actually end up buying. And when they do get a little bit more motivated, I want them to come back to me already initially. So that's kind of something I'll go about. I'm less likely to work with the person that needs to be in something in 30 days than I would in the person to be in a year, because it's very challenging to get someone into something in 30 days unless they have cash and they're ready to write offers now. A lot of times those people will go and live with family, or they end up renting something, because you can't, it's really hard to buy a house in 30 days unless they have cash. So that's just a little thing I go into the time frame about. If they're pre-qualified or not, how would you meet with someone face-to-face if they were not pre-qualified?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else?
I would
No?
get them qualified.
I would say we should.
Yeah, they put them in advance.
Vicky and Carissa.
Okay.
See if I can get them
We'll take them
qualified.
out.
Anybody would not meet, meet with someone that's not pre-qualified yet?
I'd meet with them.
Okay.
Or you
Alright.
don't know what's gonna happen.
Yep. I rolled the dice on this. I kind of, I'm 50-50. If they are willing to get pre-qualified, I usually set I set the expectation before we show property. You will need to get pre-qualified, so I'll meet with them. But it's really hard to do a buyer's consultation unless we know what they're pre-qualified up to. So we're just kind of talking pretend, and I'd rather talk actual. So if we can get them pre-qualified ahead of time, that's wonderful. To get them in touch with Vicky or Clarissa or any other lender that you might use is definitely the way to go.
Or wouldn't you, excuse me?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, if they weren't pre-qualified, wouldn't you work the numbers out and see how much they could buy?
Would I do that?
Yes.
No. No, I'm a realtor. I show pretty houses, so I don't do numbers. So
Okay.
I kind of take a step back and
Okay.
yeah, oh definitely. I want them to have a strong relationship with a realtor or with a mortgage broker.
Right.
So if their monthly payment at closing is not what it wants, I don't want them to turn their neck at me and say,
Okay.
you said.
No, that's-
So I step back on that. So yeah, I get them hooked up with the mortgage lender. I do set the expectation that we won't see houses unless you're pre-qualified, or if you have a proof of funds for cash. If they're not willing to get pre-qualified, I won't meet with them. If they're working on it, or if they kind of say right off the bat, I have good credit and I'm a firefighter, I've never bought a house before, I use my best judgment. So if they have a job and they know that they have decent credit, that's usually some good signs that, okay, I want to meet with this person. If they're saying, oh, I'm good, we don't have to worry about me, I'm an independent, I'm self-employed, those are all little red flags. I'm going through a divorce. Red flags. You need to get hooked up with a lender. It's not easy to get a loan, so it's gonna take a little bit of extra time. I always ask this question: have you seen any properties? Do you know why I asked that?
Yeah, well, they
You already
would
want to
they
be
want
with
to
another realtor?
Right.
Because anytime I ask somebody if they're working with a realtor, it makes it uncomfortable. So a lot of people don't know if they're working with a realtor or not. So I word it, have you seen any properties? And that's kind of a little bit easier of a way to ask it, because sometimes people feel like they're working with a realtor just because they have seen properties. They feel like they're working with a realtor because someone emailed them properties. Their aunt might be a realtor, so they feel like they might, they went through an open house. Doesn't mean you're working with a realtor. So I always ask the question, have you seen properties? And then my next question, with who? And if they say a Keller Williams agent, I say, all right, well, let's get in contact with them. Have a great day. I don't want to meet face-to-face with somebody that's working with a Keller Williams agent. If they're working with a non-Keller Williams agent, what do you say?
Look for us.
Sign anything? Have you signed anything?
Have you signed an agreement? Okay, that's a good one. My question is, why are you calling me? Why are you calling me if you have a realtor? You should call them. So, and I just, at that point, my goal is not to convert them into an appointment. My goal is to show them why I have value and why their realtor doesn't. It's not stealing, it's just basically saying, why are you calling me? Well, my agent has a full-time job, so I just do some preliminary stuff and then they just open doors for me on the weekend. Oh, how's that working out? So I just get in dialogue with them. I don't try to take them. I don't try to convert the appointment. I just basically try to show value that, hey, if you're calling me, maybe your realtor's not doing a good job. Because when I do a buyer's consultation, I sit down with them. I said, hey, don't call other realtors. Call me. If you have a question, email me. If you saw a property on Zillow, text me real quick and let me look it up. Because I'm representing you. I don't want you calling the listing agent because it might be, let's say there's a bank-owned property and there's 7 offers on it. If you try to call that listing agent, they're not going to call you back. It's going to be under contract before they call you back, if they ever do. So you want to show that value. So those are typically the questions I ask on the phone, and I try to build rapport with them on the phone before I even meet them face-to-face. I don't look at it as, how quickly can I convert this lead? I look at it as, okay, do we have good communication? Are they completely standoffish and they're just not receptive to me at all? Because I don't want to work with every person that calls on the phone, because I'd rather work with the higher price point. I'd rather work with the motivated. I'd rather work with people that are receptive to me. If they tell me they're pre-qualified with Bank of America and I say, I need you to be pre-qualified with one of my lenders, and they say no, I say, okay, well, good luck. And I send them on their way. I don't need to work with every buyer that calls. A lot of times, like when I first got in the industry, anybody that raised their hand slightly that they were interested in buying a house, I was jumping all over it. I was running around town. I was showing buyers, moms, sisters that were thinking about moving here from another state, and I wasted a ton of time. So I've become a lot more cherry picking and a lot pickier, but in hindsight, you have to, if you know that you're just wasting your time and you look at it as it's just good practice, you need to get out of that direction and you need to find a better lead or a more qualified lead. So don't get stuck in the whole idea of it's good practice. If somebody calls you and they say they're looking for their neighbor, they're looking for a neighbor's friend, then just say, okay, well, let me go ahead and contact them directly. Can I have their name and number? Because that's a lead. The person that calls looking for a family friend is not a good lead. So the quicker you get to the money is the quicker you find your qualified buyer. All right, with all that said, I get them in face-to-face. You go ahead.
What would be your verbiage when you was talking about somebody working with a realtor? If a person called you to say, I would like for you to check on a property because I don't believe that my realtor told me the truth that it was pending under contract.
Okay.
What would be your verbiage?
Sure, let me look it up for you. What's the address?
Okay. Because I told him something because I didn't want to step on a realtor toes. So I told him, even though I looked it up and it was pending under contract, so I don't know if they believed or trusted any realtor.
Yeah, you might ask the question, why don't you trust your realtor? It's a good question. I kind of like, there's 2 ways that, like when I communicate with a buyer on the phone, there's 2 ways that I go about communicating with them. I either say, I look at it as a buyer and I look at money and I look at the end of the day what it's going to bring me, or I just kind of switch roles and I look at how can I help this person today. And when you look at how can I help them, how much better that conversation goes instead of you trying to close them or convert them. So if you come from a place of service, you're always going to get a better return than just trying to get closed. There's great scripts that you can do. like I feel pretty confident I could close and get in appointments with the majority of buyers that call in, even the ones that don't even want anything to do with me. You know, I can still get a pretty good close on them. But the whole thing is you have to look at it. I don't want to close every buyer because then I'm meeting with people that maybe aren't pre-qualified. There's no way they're going to buy. Their time frame is not going to work. Their expectations are unrealistic. So I get to pick who I want to work with, and I want to work with people that are like me. I want to work with people that are first-time home buyers that are excited about their new home. I typically don't like investors because they typically like to bounce listing agents, and a buyer's agent is not necessarily a good converter on investors. Now, if you're a bottom line type of guy and you can do spreadsheets and send them good properties with good rate of return, that's a better language for you. That's not my ideal buyer. I work with them occasionally, but my ideal buyer is usually second home buyers, first time home buyers, people looking to move up to a new home. So that's typically who I end up working with. It's more my niche. So if you are you don't like the warm fuzzies and you want to specify in investors, they'll love you and they'll buy multiple properties from you if you give them what they want, and that's the numbers. So just know your buyer, who you're going to sit down and talk with. Any other questions before we go into the actual appointment, once we got that set up? If somebody calls in, when should I set the appointment with them?
Right away.
Right away? Anybody else?
I believe it's in 3 days, maybe.
3 days, okay. Anybody else over here?
Whenever it works with both of your schedules.
Okay. So if I have an appointment to do an open house and I have a pre-qualified motivated buyer, should I do the open house or should I meet with the pre-qualified motivated buyer?
Open house.
Do the open house.
Meet with the buyer.
Meet with the buyer.
Yeah. You have a team, so you can actually conduct the open house.
Oh,
with
do
the other
both.
person.
I like that.
So work with the buyer.
Do both. I would get someone else to cover the open house and I would meet with the buyer. Because the whole goal of doing an open house is to find a pre-qualified buyer. So if I already have a pre-qualified buyer, probably don't want to do the open house. So it's just it's a level thing. I always tell my any buyer's agents I ever work with, I said the goal is to get a closing. In order to get a closing, you need to do what? Get an offer accepted. In order to get an offer accepted, you have to write a lot of offers. So if you're not writing offers, then you need to be in buyer appointments, face-to-face appointments. You don't have any face-to-face appointments? All right, you need to get more leads. So it's kind of a tier thing. So if you have closings lined up, that's excellent. So what's the next step? You know, you need to be writing offers. If you're not writing offers with someone, and then the last thing you want to do is open houses, and that's just to generate more leads. But if you already have properties that you can show an active pre-qualified buyer, there's no reason to do open houses. So unless you're building that pipeline. So be able to prioritize what's important. And that's kind of the pecking order that I do. New buyer appointments, new buyer appointments, new buyer appointments, face-to-face, face-to-face. Going and meeting someone at a property is not a new buyer's appointment. So get them into, just say, okay, you want to see that one house? Let's meet at the office and then we'll go see that one house. Try to get them in that buyer's appointment. You're going to save so much time, so much money. Does anybody have any reasons why they feel like they would go show the house before they do the buyer appointment? Is there ever a reason why you feel like I would do that?
What if they just refuse to come in? And they're just like, we really just want to see this one house. Don't you waste your time.
I would ask a lot more questions. Why do you only want to see one house? So I would show it depending on the circumstances. I'm a lot quicker to move for cash than I am financing. So if they say that they're $300,000 cash, they want to see this one house, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it before a buyer's consultation because I want to meet them face to face. And then after that one appointment, try to get them in that office, try to get them in the office. But once you meet them at the house, they kind of will pull on you a little bit. So you want to show value.
What about if they are pre-approved?
Pre-approved?
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably not. Just because someone's pre-approved does not know that they do not know how the market works. And I feel like I would be letting them down left and right if I didn't take the time to explain to them what this shitstorm of a market is. Sorry, I'm on the camera too. So bank-owned properties, short sales, traditional sales. I ask a little bit, have they written any offers? So I'll ask questions to determine if they have any understanding of what the market is. But let's say I go show them that one house, they like it, we write an offer, but then they want to offer $20,000 less. Okay, so I failed as a realtor because I didn't take the time to explain I didn't set the expectation of what the market has to offer before we went out and took a look. So the first one's free. It's kind of what I usually say. If I can't convert them on the buyer appointment and the other things line up, that they're cash, they're motivated, they're not working with a realtor, I will go do and show the first one free. But I really try hard to even trick them into the buyer's consultation. I'll say, oh, well, meet me at my office, and then we'll go take a look at the property. And then I try to sucker them into the office and spend an hour with them. And at the end of the day, it's a win, because the people I do buyer's consultations are the people I get paychecks for in the next 30 to 60 days.
Could you give me your typical pitch on the market conditions? Whatever you come to.
Oh, sure, yeah. I do ask them if they've been looking for a while, or if they have written an offer. I do say, oh, well, do you know what a short sale is? And then I try to be quiet. That's always a challenge for me because I'm a high I personality. Did you guys do DISC profiles? I also have ADHD, so I go on tangents left and right. So all these, so high I with ADHD, woo-woo! So I try to be quiet, let them answer questions. So I say, do you know what a short sale is? And then I let them kind of explain it. They usually explain it pretty well. The thing that they don't realize typically is the bank can come back higher. So just the list price is not guaranteed. You can offer full list price, above list price, under list price. It doesn't guarantee anything. So I do try to explain that. I also try to, but that's pretty much all I go over. I don't talk too much about the market other than anything to kind of catch their attention. Maybe talk about a pre-listed property that I know that's hitting the market that might work for them. Or I just previewed a property in Waterford Trails, the same neighborhood that you're calling me on. It's coming on the market, or it might work out better for you, and it's active versus pending. Everything you're calling on is pending, right? So I try to just throw out little things that say, hey, I have a bucket of information up here I'd like to share with you. You don't know everything. You're an attorney.
That you have to explain multiple offers. They come in thinking that it's a buyer's market.
Oh yeah, we turn that around really quick. Yeah. So, and what I do from that point is pretty much, I try to make if they'll talk on the phone with me for 10 minutes, it's a great lead. I want to know everything about that person. I want to know the wife, I want to know the kids, I want to, I'll talk. I don't want to hear about the house they're looking for, because then they don't feel the need to come in for the buyer's appointment. I don't want to tell them about the house they called on, because then they won't feel the need to come in for the buyer's appointment. So I try to take them off of whatever they're looking for. Oh, you're calling on 125 Main Street? Okay, I don't want to tell you anything about that property. That's my goal, because I want them to answer my questions. Usually I'll give them a piece of information they're looking for, but then we trade for questions. So if they say, I'm calling on this property 123 Main Street, I'm like, okay, what's your name? So in order for me to give them something, they have to give me something. All right, I got your name. All right, well, I'm just pulling it up on MLS here. You have just 1 minute? It'll take a minute. Yeah, that's fine. I got a minute. Okay, great. What's your phone number? So then I get their phone number. I'm like, oh, here it is. The computer's really working slow. All right, you said 123 Main Street, right? Okay. That's not the same address I used before. So then I said, okay, what do you want to know about it? And then they say, oh, I want to know how big it is. Great. What size are you looking for? So I get to ask another question because they ask me a question. So it's like a game. You answer their questions, but only in return for your questions. Did you have a question?
If you had someone who was looking for a rental, how would you convert them over to someone and they have a job and they're new to the area, but they're looking to rent? Mm-hmm. How would you convince them to go more towards buying?
I would just ask them if they've considered buying and why they're renting, and maybe they're new to the area, so they're not sure what area of the town they want to look in. Try to get them pre-qualified.
I'm trying to also explain them for those cases, the majority, if they go for the loan, how much they're going to pay for getting $100,000 for each month. So it's going to be like less than rental price for what they are looking for. So it's also kind of the benchmark they can feel in mind.
Yeah, so sometimes, when we were in the buyer's market, it made more sense for a renter to buy than to own. But now it's a little harder to convert that, because it's hard to convert them to a seller's market, which we're in, because you can't get closing costs paid typically right now. the prices are great, your mortgage payment's awesome, but you still have to come up with all your closing costs, your down payment. So it's a tough conversion right now to get someone with that idea. I usually just try to be very polite and send them on their way and hope they come back in a year once their lease is up. When they're a little bit more motivated, because only the motivated win right now in this market. So, you know, you could be pre-qualified for $250. You could be, I want to be in something in 60 days. But after writing 5 offers, you get burned down, and they might just say, "I'm going to rent for a year. This is too hard." So I really try to show them that it's not uncommon to not get an offer accepted. Don't get discouraged. You have to, you know, put lots of offers in. And I have buyers look at me, what does it take? Typically it takes writing 2 or 3 offers in the same weekend that we sell the properties to get 1 accepted. So just, you got to write those offers.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What are the average closing costs?
The average closing cost on a home? I don't answer that because I'm a realtor. Who do you think you would ask?
Well, sometimes they ask the clients.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be something that I would say contact the lender?
Yeah, the lender has that answer usually. What I usually say is, you know, I do know average, you know, I usually, if it's a $150,000 home, I usually say, you know, X amount. But I say, well, lenders are paying some closing costs. Would that be something that you'd be interested in finding out more about to get them to the lender? Because the lender, lenders can pay closing costs now because interest rates are so low. So that's usually what I try
personally, what, from my knowledge, what would
It depends on purchase price of the home. So if it's a $150,000 home, your closing costs are around $5,000 to $6,000. If you're buying a $200,000 home, it's usually closer to 7 or 8. But like I said, if you depends on how much you have. If you have that money, do you have that money to put on down as closing cost?
So who's paying right now the closing cost?
Buyers pay closing costs. That's the expectation. Sellers can pay buyers closing costs, but it's rare right now because we're in a seller's market.
So
So
most of the buyers paying.
Most of the buyers pay their own closing costs right now. That's the expectation you want to set. Because the realtors that are still sitting with buyers saying, oh, the sellers will pay your closing costs, don't worry about it. Those are the realtors that are writing a lot of offers. What would you say, because we're all Keller Williams agents, what would you say if a buyer says, I'm using down payment assistance through the county?
Down payment?
Down payment assistance through the county. County's going to pay $20,000 towards my house. Would you work with that client?
Well, the county, has the county pre-qualified them?
I took a class already. That's what they'll say.
Yeah.
I took the class.
If they're really hard
That
to
might
get,
take a
like,
long time until they actually get the money.
Okay.
I turned it down.
The county,
Turn it down.
the county might have so many different restrictions
They-
as far as like what
What-
FHA
what-
can
they're hard to
help
get
you
them
with.
house right now.
Yeah, I turned it down.
I took a class, it's a homeowner, so the county might have stricter restrictions than
Okay.
the FHA might.
Very true. Anybody else? Run. Don't run. That's not fair. Convert them to not use down payment assistance. I have never worked with a down payment assistance before. I've tried to. It's very challenging. You have to be a very specific niche to work with people that want to use the assistance. We're in a seller's market right now, so there's a pecking order. Cash is king in real estate. Then conventional financing, putting a large amount of cash down and financing a smaller amount. After conventional, you know, what would be next? FHA, so 3.5% down. After FHA, what would be next?
Yeah.
VA. Okay, actually,
VA would be above
VA or USDA, 100% financing. Do you know what would be under that?
what you just said.
Seller bond?
FHA using closing cost would be a weaker loan than a VA loan. So if, and do you know why that would be?
What is the FHA?
FHA using closing costs, you said?
FHA using closing cost. Why would that be a weaker loan? So if the buyer's an FHA buyer, but they need $4,000 in closing costs paid by the
It's
seller.
equal into the loan. It's contained
Well-
together.
Right, because the appraisal has to meet that extra $4,000.
Right.
The biggest issue we're having right now is low appraisals. So you're basically saying that I'm going to pay for your overpriced listing, and then I want it to appraise $4,000 more. The sellers and the listing agents are onto that, and they're saying, no, we're not going to renegotiate. So if this doesn't appraise, you're still paying, you know, at least what you offered. So just keep that in mind. Under FHA with closing costs, what would be next? Let's find down here. FHA,
2 or 3K.
using closing cost, needing closing costs, and using down payment assistance. So this buyer down here is just not winning in the seller's market. If you have this great listing that comes in the market, it's listed at 120,000. If you get a cash offer at 118, or you get FHA needing closing costs using down payment assistance for 110, you know, what are you going to pick? So you're always going to go with cash, conventional. You know, there is a value when you use another product, because the likelihood of that not closing is just too risky, and sellers are going to pick some of the stronger candidates.
Can you re-rank them? So
Yeah,
the
cash is king. Conventional financing,
VA,
FHA, FHA no closing cost.
FH.
Then you have VA or USDA, like the meat.
What is the USDA for?
USDA is like urban,
Hot.
urban
Rural housing
Isn't
service.
Yeah.
Waterford considered USDA?
Avalon.
Avalon. I bought a house in Waterford like 3 years ago, and we used the USDA.
Oh, you did? Yeah. There's Woodbury Road is the cutoff. So anything that's east of Woodbury on the south side of 50 is USDA. Anything 419, which is like Cypress Lakes, that would be USDA. There's areas like Lake Mary Jane. There's some areas around here. You have to go onto the website. I think it's USDA.gov, something like that.
But what does it mean, like?
100% financing.
Oh.
So it's a great program. There's some restrictions. Ask Vicki and Clarissa; they're experts at it. So
Including the closing costs?
They have a guaranteed program also.
Not always.
pardon?
They have
We had our
a
celebrate
guaranteed
parents,
loan program.
About a few years ago.
Right. It's government backed. It's easy to qualify for. There's income restrictions, so.
You have to take some courses also online now for that.
No, you just have to qualify with income. Yes.
I have an FHA buyer that's seen a lot of stuff and they're getting beat out. They're putting 10% down, but they're getting beat out. So is there a dialogue for them? Because they're still trying to be somewhat picky on some of their criteria, but they're just.
How many offers have they written?
We wrote one, and the second one they intended to write, it came off the market right before they wrote it.
Okay, so they've only written one offer?
Yeah, they wrote one offer, and they were going to write a second one. They just didn't get it on time.
FHA, USDA, anybody that needs closing costs, they're going to have to write more than one offer typically. So, and so that's the norm. I mean, you have to write strong offers.
Is it better to steer them to like a home path or anything?
You can try to steer them to a home path loan, but that's only going to work for bank-owned properties. Yeah. So I usually you can say go ahead and get pre-qualified home path. If you're using Vicki or Clarissa, they do home path as well. But typically it's just writing a lot of offers. Maybe finding something that's not brand new on the market. Find something that's overpriced that's been on the market for over 100 days. You know, that'd be a good technique. You can dabble in short sales a little bit. Maybe try to look for ones that are pre-approved. Someone that knows what they're doing, how to close one. Get them hooked up on a short sale, keep on looking.
And in your own percentile, let's say, okay, I have a buyer that the house was 158.
Mm-hmm.
He put in 167.
Okay.
So well above it.
Right.
The price back at 151.
Mm-hmm.
The bank is now.
Bank says go ahead and pay it.
Now the bank is now hesitant on going with the appraisal price.
Right.
What's the percentile of them closing?
Depends on you. What tricks do you have up your sleeve?
I've been waiting on the bank to see what their response is going to be back.
So you say, well, I want to pay appraised value, right?
Right.
Is that what you told the bank?
Right.
Okay. And what if they say no? We're going to put it back on the market.
Appraised value, I haven't thought of it. That's why.
Have you talked to your buyer about paying above appraised value?
No.
That's a conversation needed to have.
Okay.
People are paying over appraised value to get homes, to have that, make it to that finish line of closing.
Right, because I didn't know they can actually do that.
Yep.
You know, when the appraisal comes in, most people are like, well, it's appraised at this point here.
It's a hard sell.
I already put it over.
It's a hard sell, but that's the people that are buying houses right now, are people that are willing to do the things that are uncomfortable. So if you're writing an offer and the buyer is uncomfortable at any point in the offer, that means the seller's going to be happy. So your goal is to write an offer that makes the seller happy, and in order to make the seller happy, the buyer has to be uncomfortable. So a couple things is paying over list price makes the buyer uncomfortable, makes the seller happy. Okay, not paying your own closing costs as the buyer, very uncomfortable for the buyer. They'd much rather roll that into the loan. It feels a lot more relief, but that's not going to make the seller happy. So always just kind of think of that. If you're a seller, whatever makes you happy is going to make the buyer uncomfortable. Waiving home inspections. The brokerage doesn't like to see that because, but people do it. So at the end of the day, it's going to make the seller happy. So you need to make sure your goal is to not make an offer for the buyer that they're completely uncomfortable with. You're basically saying these are some avenues that you can adjust that are going to make the seller happy and make you stand out above the other 6 offers. So, try to get the buyers, your goal is to protect them, but your goal is also to get them a house. So sometimes right now in this market, you have to make them a little uncomfortable in order to get them in the house.
So the closing costs come in the form of an interest rate instead of a seller's concession? Or?
Yes, the lender can pay closing costs with increasing the interest rate. You have to talk to your lender about that.
So in your personal opinion with that situation, and it's at 151, it was listed at 158, what would be a number you think I should tell him to come to?
It's all about negotiating. I mean, if the buyers, you said, would they put the offer in 167?
He put 167 in as an offer on a 158.
Then he should pay the additional cash, right?
Okay.
That's what his value of the property was. If he doesn't have the cash, then he can't do it, of course.
Right.
But it's time to ask for family. It's time to ask, if you have a 401k you can take from. So you have to get creative and very aggressive in order to make it to the closing table.
Well, he has the cash because he's going to put down $20,000.
If he has the cash, then there's no, I would try to get him to the finish line, and if the bank wants, I would, my goal is to always ask for the wedding cake first from the bank, because why not? They might just say yes. But if they don't, you try to meet in the middle. It's just like negotiating again. So just try to get in the middle, try to make both parties happy. If he's willing to pay up above, and he was willing to pay 167, then if he gets anything less than that, it's a win for him. So even if it's 160, it's still $7,000 less. You saved him. Good job.
That's a conversation I gotta have.
Yeah, and have it early. Set those expectations early, because when that low appraisal comes in, you don't want them to be devastated and then they walk away and they're like, that realtor doesn't know what they're doing, and now I've written 6 offers and I've paid for appraisals and I don't have a house yet. That's really devastating for a buyer when they pay for home inspections and appraisals and then they have no house. Okay, so I get in the buyer appointment now. Yeah. Sure.
Let's say they say, sometimes, have to be pre-approved. How do you confirm that? When they come in, you ask them to bring a letter, or?
I use my gut a lot. I'm not gonna question them to death. If I don't have any new buyer appointments set up for the week, I'm not gonna question them so much that I scare them away and now I have 0 appointments. I'd rather have 1 crappy buyer appointment than no crappy buyer appointment. So you're gonna make some mistakes at the beginning. It's better to have a crappy buyer appointment and send them on their way. You don't have to show them any property. If they're not really pre-qualified, or they're using, funds from, I don't know, out of the country or something, yeah, run away. But you can, if a buyer's willing to sit down and meet you face to face, they're a person. They're willing. They're not trying to initially scam you. So don't move forward with fear. Kind of be open and be willing to come from a place of service. Let you help them. Ask them about their lender. Say, well, do you know their name? If they don't know their name, it's a little scary. It's like you're going to be borrowing a lot of money from this person. They need to know who you are when you call them. So just let them feel like you're a big source. You're a big resource, and to ask me questions. Let me help you get to the finish line of buying this house. I know things. That's what you want to tell them. I got stuff. I got secrets. I know how to get people in houses. So, okay, buyer's consultation. So we filled out the white part on the phone, and then we moved down to the gray area. The gray area is just my way of kind of building a rapport with them and just kind of going back and forth, and it's just a really question-answer type thing. I ask them if they're in a lease. This is geared more towards a first-time home buyer, so just keep that in mind. If they own a home now, I obviously wouldn't ask them how much their mortgage is. But if they're first-time home buyers and they're renting something, I want to know how much they're paying in rent, because I want to know what type of jump that they're going to make, or did they have a big job promotion and that's why they're making a big jump. So it wouldn't make sense if they're paying $1,000 a month and we're looking at $250,000 homes and they're only doing FHA financing. That's a big jump. So I want to hear something that says we got a big lump sum of money, or we got a big job promotion and that's why we're going to do this, because you want things to make sense. And if you feel like something doesn't make sense, just ask why. Why is that? Why? Bedrooms. They say they want a, I know we're supposed to be role playing this.
It's all right.
You know.
You can do this on your own.
I challenge everything in the gray. If they say they want a 4-bedroom, I usually try to get them down to a 3-bedroom. Why would I do that?
This more please.
Okay.
3 with a den is a good option.
What's that?
3 with a den is a good option as
Okay.
well too.
So if it's listed in the MLS and it's a 3-bedroom with a den, would it be, and I put it in a 4-bedroom, would that 3-bedroom with the den show up?
No.
Exactly. So it
Exactly.
would exclude it.
Right.
So that's the reason why I really try to challenge them on almost everything that's gray, because I want to know why it's important to them. If they say they want 4 sleeping rooms, I still put 3, just because I want to give them as much options as possible. We're in such a low inventory that I want them to have as much as I can get them. At this point, once I fill in all these questions, I pull up the MLS, which I'm not going to do because we're short on time. I pull up the MLS and I literally input exactly what we went over. So I put in their square footage, I put in their age of home, if they want a pool. I never put in garage. I never put in 1-story or 2-story, because that would exclude, and there's too many people that make mistakes on that to exclude it. And then I always tell them my goal is, see the little number on the bottom? Everybody know the number I'm talking about when you're searching MLS and you're drawing your things and you're putting in your criteria, how it starts off with 1 number? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So I always tell them my goal is to get that number to be about 15. It used to be 30 when we had more inventory. But now I'm like, I want that number to be 15. So it gets the buyers like, okay, I need to get that number in 15. That's what they're focused on. So I put in all their criteria. I circle the map first, because I don't search by zip codes. I always circle by map. That's just the way my brain works, but you guys can do either way. I usually ask what locations they're thinking of. So if I have a nurse that's working downtown, but I have an engineer that's working at Science Drive, I like to visualize that, and then I put a hole in the middle, and then I do a little circle out if that's what they're looking for. If they say they want a certain school zone, I try to make a polygon and do around a certain school zone. Downtown gets kind of sketchy. You have really good areas and you have really bad, so I usually will let them literally draw their finger of what they want me to draw the shapes with. And the reason why I sit and do this is because a lot of buyers out there feel, I hear it all the time, it's like the reason why they keep on searching for properties is they're assuming you're hiding properties from them. So if you sit and do this buyer's consultation and you set up the search and they're watching you set up the search, they don't feel like you're hiding anything from them. I almost to the point like here, just do it. Like you draw your triangle, because I don't want them to I want it to be like a team effort. I want them to feel like they're as much invested in this as I'm invested in it, because at the end of the day, if they don't feel like I'm showing them everything that's on the market, they're on Zillow and Realtor.com and they're getting marketed by all these other realtors, and that's not what I want. I want to establish value. It's not about finding the home, it's about getting them to the finish line. So they might find lots of homes that are perfect, but they keep getting outbid, outbid, outbid. That's where a good realtor comes into play. Okay, so I got my map searched up, and I do the map first, and there's 4,000 houses in that search. Woohoo! We're good. Okay, so then I switch back over from map to the data input thing. And so I put in, okay, so this includes everything, so we need to get this number down a little bit. And so what I usually do is put in square footage. I put in, do they want single family or townhouse? And I question that, because if they only want single family, I ask them why not a townhouse? I'm here to stay. Continue. Oh, okay, continue. I thought it was like wrap it up. Like, no. I heard the like I said, I always challenge. So if they say, okay, I want 2,000 square feet, I'm like, how about 18? I want a single family. How about a townhouse too? You know, I'm always just asking the questions, because if they say, no, I want this because, then I know why they want it. So if they're like, well, I don't want stairs and all townhouses have stairs, I'm like, well, what if the master's on the first floor? So I just ask the questions, because they might end up with a townhouse at the end of the day. The guy that wanted the biggest backyard ends up with the smallest yard because they got Stony Brook instead of having a big backyard in Andover. So it's always about asking the questions of what's important, because at the end of the day, they don't end up with what's on the list. Always turn your phone off before you start your buyer's consultation.
Or the class on it?
Huh?
Or
yeah, or the class on it. So we got location. I ask them what their family type is. I want to know how many people are living in the home, because I want to be able to visualize with them what they're seeing. So if there's only 2 people at the buyer's consultation, but they want 2,000 square feet, I'm like, that's a big house for 2 people. Who else is living in the home? And then they're like, oh, well, my mother and brother, and we have 3 more kids. I'm like, oh, 2,000 square feet. Makes a lot of sense now. So ask the questions. Ask if they have animals, because some people's animals are like their babies, and you know, if you know their animals' names or their kids' names, that's important to them. That's how you build relationships. That's how you get referrals once you get them closed. I always ask what their deal breakers are, their fears, because I like to kind of hit those dead on and not wait until we actually come to a situation where it's there. I ask, are they willing to put a little bit of money into the property, because the properties that are in perfect condition sell usually above list price. They sell very quickly. So I like to say, you know, paint's pretty cheap. Can you replace carpet? A lot of these bancos don't have appliances, then an issue. So I talk about that kind of stuff ahead of time. If their deal breakers are they don't want a house with mold, I'm like, good, because your lender won't let you buy a house with mold. So I like to talk about things that might be on their mind, or things they might have seen on TV or heard from friends. I like to bring those up ahead of time instead of wait for the properties that I'm like, oh, there's a little mold on this property, and I'm trying to push them into buying this house with mold, where they already have a fear with mold. I've had people have mold conversations that have bought a house with mold, by the way. Because there's something else better. You know, that extra 1,000 square feet made the difference if anything. I ask if they've purchased before, just so I know what I'm up against. I always like to ask this question last, what's most important about buying a home? And I just let them talk a little bit, because it usually comes down to condition, price, neighborhood, location. So, and I try to listen for that, because if somebody really wants a neighborhood and a location, I'm going to probably not look for the biggest square footage home. If somebody's really, also look at price per square foot. If someone likes if neighborhood's really important, usually they pay a little bit more price per square foot for some reason, because neighborhood is an intangible value. I do go into what they're qualified for, who they're qualified with. Do they want closing cost, or do they need closing cost? I ask them what their favorite marketing website is. Anybody know I would ask that question?
So you can use it?
Exactly. What else?
So you can know where your competition may come from.
Right.
They come from you, and they like Zillow's on multiple agents on there, which they have not the right, but they can go to that agent. And just because they're advertising multiple Zillows and Zillows, so they find a house in that area code, most likely they end up calling me, or they said, I'm here to talk to consultation with you.
Right.
The way you'll be able to limit the zip code they come from, or how it does. Zillow, not using the
Yep. What I'm trying to do is avoid them from using marketing websites. I don't want them using the marketing websites. I want them to use MLS, like Realtor. We use MLS because we want to feel accurate information. Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, not accurate. So I lay that out, because when they go home, I want them to have a negative feeling towards those marketing websites. I always say they're great to do a little research and to kind of get your feet wet, but if you're ready to buy a house, don't use that as your source to find properties. You'll be very skewed on what you can get. And 9 times out of 10, they're pending right now anyway. So I always tell them, if you drive past the neighborhood and you see a sign, text me the address and I'll text you if it's available. I always explain to the clients how I work because I always ask them, when's the best time for you to see property? When's the best time for me to contact you? What's the best way for me to contact you? 90% of my clients right now want a text message. They don't want to talk on the phone with me. I want to talk to them, but they don't want to talk to me. I tell them that email is the worst way to get in touch with me. I get a lot of emails in a day, and I don't have time to sit and email everybody back. So I said, if you have a quick question, call me. I always pick up my phone and listen with the client, which is true. I don't pick up phone calls when I'm doing buyer's consultations. And then I say, but text me because if I'm out showing property, it's pretty easy for me to text someone back versus while people are looking at the property. I also explained to them that I have 2 little boys now. I just had my second. But I say I have sacred time between 6 and 8 o'clock. And I set that expectation that's the time that I spend with my family. I work weekends, I work nights, I work during the day. I don't really take off, unless I'm on vacation or something like that. So that's my sacred time. Between 6 and 8 o'clock, that's the time I spend with my family. I try to stay off my phone. You can still try to text me, but if I might get back to you a little slower. So I just set that expectation so they're not getting frustrated that I haven't called them back in an hour. So I do set that standard. I do let them know I do work weekends and nights. And even if I'm not available, I have somebody that can show them usually pretty quick on the fly because we work on a team.
What does the night means? What time of night?
What?
Night.
It's up to you.
Anytime.
As long as
You don't have
between 6 and 8.
Mm-hmm. Just because for women it's kind of a very, it's not safe showing homes after a certain time.
If you've done a buyer's consultation, you'll feel pretty comfortable with, that's why I don't like to show the randoms because as women it is a little intimidating, But don't move forward with fear. Give the people the benefit of the doubt. If you meet face-to-face with them, always bring your phone in with you whenever you go show property. If they're creepy, stand by the front door, leave it open. If it's a vacant house, I always leave that door open, and I usually say, hey, I'm going to open up this door just to air it out a little bit. It's really to run like hell if it gets creepy in there. So, yeah.
What if it's vacant and there is no, I know, ask like details question. It's nighttime, it's vacant, there is no electricity.
Don't get in.
Yeah.
They cannot see much anyway, right?
Yeah.
What?
You gonna go with a flashlight?
I'm going.
Exactly.
Honestly, if you
So
feel
no,
that
don't
uncomfortable
go.
with a client,
Yeah.
don't work with them.
Don't go.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the creepy vibe from clients, which, there are some, I showed this one buyer, like, $400,000 to $500,000 homes. I researched the hell out of them beforehand. Total creeper. And I went and, felt very uncomfortable the whole time, and I haven't worked with him again. It's just, it's a vibe thing. I don't think he was a real buyer. I had the vibe right away. It didn't get creepy until later, so I just kind of cut my losses at the end. Anybody that you don't feel comfortable being in a vacant house with, you just move on to the next one. There's no reason to feel that way. But yeah, leave the doors open. Always bring your cell phone in. Carry mace if that's something you feel would be a little better for you. Don't carry a gun. Don't need you on the news. Okay, so I don't know where I went, but we're looking back at the number, and I put in all their criteria, and I said I want that number to be 15, and I put in, the last thing I put in is price, and they want to be under 200,000, and all of a sudden that number goes from 375 houses down to 7. I'm like, oh, it's only 7. We need to not be so picky, because if we only have 7, we need to maybe open up the location a little bit more. Can we increase price point at all? I know you're pre-qualified up to 170 or 225, but you want to stay under 200. Do you want to go ahead and put it up to 225? And then I just tweak it, and I try to get that number as close to 15 as possible. Would anybody leave it at 7 if it showed up 7?
Yeah. For me, I would automatically increase the price range, but I would be picky on when if their price was 200, and I increase it to 210. And then I see that house on there that's 206, but it just came on last week. That's enough. If that house was 207 and it came on in January, I would still send that to them and tell them, even though it's over your price range, it's been on the market for so long that price is negotiable.
I would be careful doing that because there's some people that feel like all realtors do that. So if you're sitting face to face with them and you just did this buyer's consultation and they say they want to be under 200 and all of a sudden you type in 225, they'll be like, wow, this guy didn't listen to anything I said. So make sure they control it. You know, after they see that there's no results, let them change it. Give them the suggestion, well, do you want to bump it up to 225? And they might say, no, I don't. I want to keep it under 200. Okay. Then we need to drop the square footage instead. So instead of that 2,000 square feet, can we do 18? And they say, yes, let's do that. So it's about your client and what makes them comfortable. Now, when I'm not sitting in front of my client, the first thing I do is I go up to 225 when I'm searching independently. I call the agent and say, hey, this has been on the market for a long time. Is your buyer entertaining lower offers? Because right now I have a buyer that won't let me look past 200. Is it okay if I show that property knowing that we won't offer over 200? And then I bring it to them. So it's about respecting your buyer's wishes. But yeah, you can tweak it when they're not around to get them outside the box a little bit. And that's creating good value. But I wouldn't do it if they specifically say, I don't want to look over 200, and then you bring them 210. Make sure you have an explanation why. Don't just say, oh, we're going to offer less, because you know the market. If you offer $10,000 less on a property, you're probably not going to get it right now. So I wouldn't do that. If anything, I'm actually, if they need closing costs and they're pre-qualified up to 200, what do you think a good idea is? Anybody?
What was the question again?
If they're pre-qualified up to 200, but they need closing costs, what's a good solution?
Get them
to
with
say
the
surcharge
lender
for?
to put it towards the loan and then upgrade, and then put their interest rate higher. No?
What'd you say?
180.
Set it to 180. Yep, that's what I would do.
Price down, so.
You look lower, so that way you're looking at houses that are 180 houses and not $200,000 houses. Because if you need $10,000 in closing costs, guess how much the houses are?
Exactly.
So they're just overpriced $10,000. So and it's a really good idea, because sometimes if they're capped at 200 and a banco comes on the market at 200 and it's $10,000 over underpriced and there's multiple offers, you'll lose every time. So kind of tweaking it down a notch. So you're only seeing house. You don't want to show them a bunch of houses they're not going to buy. So you want to really show them the meat and potatoes of the houses.
Yeah, because I just started it on the house I was telling you about, the 150. One household, tell him maybe cut in at 156, and tell you pay the closing costs, and then the house will still be at 152. And you got the house bill value plus the closing costs.
Yeah. Who else said 7? They would show 7.
I would show 7.
Okay, why is that?
If it's 7 houses that fit their criteria exactly, I think it's a little bit easier to show them those 7 versus showing 15 homes that kind of fit their criteria.
That's what my husband does.
Like kind of.
Yeah, he wants to show one house.
Kind of narrow in to find not one, but.
Oh, he wants to show one house. That's his goal every time. Is I want to show you one house to buy. And sometimes it works for him, and that's why he's not a buyer's agent.
I was thinking it depends on the area. I mean, if you know they want to live in like Avalon Park or whatever, you kind of know that all the houses are the same. If you're looking downtown, one house can be really nice, and the next house can be
right. That's true too.
Yeah,
well.
I mean, I think it just depends on where they're looking. I mean, if they're in Windermere, it's not that they're gonna. 7 houses could definitely be enough.
Yeah. Well, 7 houses is plenty, but I know that the next step is we're going to actually click through those houses, and I know that probably 5 of them are going to be trash, so we only have about 2 houses to look at. So I want to increase that number to 15, because when they leave at the end of the day, I'm setting them up on a search.
Okay.
And if we only have 7, that means our criteria is pretty narrow, and they might only get 1 search result every other